People of the internet, the Joe Rogan and Douglas Murray conversation has gone viral and everybody is talking about it. People are trying to decide who is right, who is wrong, who won the debate, and everything in between. But what most people don't realize is the waves this show has made since it debuted. And today we are going to talk about those after effects of this conversation because they are a little deeper and darker than you might have thought. And it just made me feel like something was off and I have to go exploring. So today we are going to do a deep dive and it'll be a little bit long, but stick with me because there are some things that maybe you could help me with and maybe we could figure why this is just seeming a little bit weird. So first, I want to start with how I got here. I made a Tony Hinchcliffe video last week, and I started noticing that the normal, like, you're a liberal or you're this, they just ramped up a little bit. And some of these comments since the Tony Hinchcliffe video would duplicate themselves on other videos, and they'd be accusing me of supporting one side of a argument or a conflict or a political thought, and it just started getting heavier and heavier. And I've made it a point because I think it's very easy to be political and yell at people and fight for your side, to be neutral and try and hear things out. And plus, I don't want to bring politics into my YouTube channel, and I don't feel like I owe anybody my political view. So I keep it out of there, and I will, because I don't want to divide my fan base. I just want to have fun making fun of the Rogan sphere. That's my objective. Let's make fun of the Rogan sphere and not talk about politics. And that's how I kept it. So it seemed really strange that I would just keep getting these things when I don't ever say anything about these things. And just talking about Rogan somehow connects me to something, which is weird. But anyways, a few days later, I came upon this conversation with Joe Rogan and Douglas Murray. It came out, and I just didn't watch it until yesterday. And I made a video, and the YouTube comments that YouTube filters out were insane, accusing me of supporting all kinds of atrocities. And I just didn't understand it until I came upon an article, and where we will start this investigation, by a man named Konstantin. Is it Kisin? I know Isla was hard to say yesterday, but this Konstantin Kisin might be a little harder. Anyways, moving on. Konstantin Kisin. Now, many of you, if you know Joe Rogan, rightly will know who this guy is, because there he is with this Francis Foster guy who I can't stand. And these two are comedians. But somehow they're not even really known for comedy. And if you Google their name, a comedy special is the last thing you're going to see. And what you're going to see is that they're big time political people, like massive political people. Even when I looked up Konstantin, it said that he was known. It didn't even really mention comedy until the end. And it said he was known for being a political spokesman, blah, blah. And if you look at their show, the title of their videos, it's very not comedy. These people are basically the same people that Joe Rogan all has on. And we could all see kind of that maybe there's some kind of organization behind all of these guys, because they all seem to interview the same people and the same things get talked about. And like the Rogan sphere, it's mostly these political people. And then every once you'll get a comic. Here you see Tony Hinchcliffe. So, I mean, they're following the Joe Rogan show to a T. But I'm not here to talk about their political values. I want to show you what they stand for, and that, even in their description here, free speech YouTube show and podcast. We believe in open, fact-based discussion of important and controversial issues. And then, comedians, right? Doesn't seem like a comedy channel. So you get where I'm coming from. Well, this morning I was doing research on this. Like every morning, I go through and I look for things and research. And I came upon this article, The Free Press. In fact, I then Googled this article because there's a paywall and there's ways to get around it, but there wasn't. So I really wanted to read this article, so I subscribed to this, right? To read it because the title, The New Rules of Podcasting Are Making Our Debates and Us Dumber. Wait. And then there's a picture of this conversation with Douglas Murray. So instantly I'm like, wait, is this guy that's basically copying the YouTube like formula for Joe Rogan, who constantly goes on the Joe Rogan show to, spout all his political beliefs? Is this guy taking a stance against Joe Rogan? So let's read. I celebrated the rise of new media. What could go wrong with democratizing information? As it turns out, quite a lot. Witness the Douglas Murray and Dave Smith debate. I read that and said, whoa, what is going on? Okay, because yesterday when I did a video on the Douglas Murray, a lot of people, like I said, looked at me and tried to form some political thing or tried to say, oh, you supported Douglas Murray. No, I even say in the video I did not support Douglas Murray. And you can think there's a lot of opinions about this guy, but what I did appreciate for him is him actually taking it to Joe Rogan in some form, because nobody does. But that's not what everybody thought, apparently. And, I just had to do research because that is how I am. And I wanted to figure out, why are people so mad about politics that don't make any sense? So we read. Prepare for the unprecedented. I'm about to admit I was wrong. Oh gosh, is this okay? Is this article going to be something great? For years, I have celebrated the rise of new media and its impact on our ability to seek truth, challenge false narratives peddled by legacy institutions, and transform the way we conduct our public debate. The rationale behind my thought process seems solid. After all, the medium is the message. The reason I thought our conversations about politics, culture, and entertainment have become so fake was the rapidly shrinking soundbite and media elite, more interested in winning than learning. That's true. You have to understand that a lot of the media is all paid for. Like, all of it is. It makes money on advertising and the people that pay it. And so, honestly, the world's fucked up, man. This is all I gotta say. You try to be like, oh, the media, oh, the government, but you know what? Those same things could be applied to, oh, your boss, oh, the company you work for, oh, your mother, oh, your father, oh, everybody. Humans are terrible. And I know some of you like to deny that fact, but throughout human history, humans have done more terrible things than good. And it's not that I don't believe humans are good or humans can't be good. The problem is humans always choose not to be good because of things like money, fame, power, success, things, advantages, whatever. And when put to the test, 99% of the time, humans choose the greed of themselves over the good of everybody. And you can't fault that. We're wired to survive. So trying to explain these things, it just kind of seems like beating a dead horse. It's like, yeah, of course humans do this. Like, of course the media is paid for. Of course the government's corrupt. Of course newspapers are corrupt. Of course the TV channel is corrupt. They all want to get paid at the end of the day and live a life of luxury because life is short and the clock is ticking down and people want to have as much fun or success or whatever their goal is as possible. So they sacrifice the good of people. So I can't it's just like, okay, yeah, of course. Journalism, academia, and politics merged into a monoculture whose consensus rested primarily on the vigorous inhalation of gases emanating from their own backsides. That's just a fancy way of saying he farted. Into which they had firmly inserted their heads. Oh, jeez. I don't know anyone who voted for Trump was their mantra. Far from being a confession of ignorance and lack of perspective, this phrase was uttered with pride at dinner parties to signal membership of the elite class. Yeah, that's why politics is so dangerous. It's just really, like, here's the thing. It's super easy. It's super easy to take a stance on politics. Like, I could upload another channel and I could make even more. You think I make a lot of videos about this stuff? I could make even more about politics. Like, and you can form an opinion on a story like that. And I just don't know. The only thing that comes with politics is hate, corruption, greed, disappointment, loss of hope in people. I just don't want to mess with it. I don't want to mess with it, and I don't understand people that want to. It's a hard life, right? Where we go. The response for this contingent to sequential dismantling of the core assumptions about the way the world works was an attempt to use the credentialism to make reality go away. Experts think vaccinating newborns against COVID is essential. Now pipe down, mask up, and follow the science. In decades past, absent the ability to make their voices heard, the proles would have had to grumble away about big pharma and obscurity as people, mostly hippie lefties, have been doing for ages. But thanks to the technological revolution, which reduced the cost of running a major broadcasting channel from millions of dollars to the price of a smartphone, the era of gatekeeping was well and truly over. Yeah, okay. I think, that might be the case. It might be the case. And I'm sitting here right now, right? It's true. I'm just trying to see things outside of political terms. I worked in photojournalism. I spent a lot of time around these things about breaking news stories and crazy situations. And I have no desire anymore. I saw a lot of things that just don't work out for humans in that space. And I wonder because it's almost like politics is our entertainment. Like, politics is our entertainment, and I don't know why. There really is, right? When you strip away the bad things about humans, when you strip away the negative things in your life, there really is some awesome stuff to do in the world. Just look at YouTube. You could find videos of people traveling by train everywhere. I watch train traveling all the time because I love trains. Like I'm not like obsessed with the train per se, but what the train does is that adventure into the unknown. You get to see nature as you go. And I even spent part of my life just traveling around certain parts of the world, backpacking, because that adventure, the one thing I found in life that is so addicting, that just makes you feel so alive, is traveling, right? And I spent a lot of my life trying to travel as much as I could. And I just don't know, anyways, long rant. I don't know with all of this, what would I say? All of this good shit that you could do in the world. I don't know why we keep these terrible leaders that use us for money, power, war, whatever they want, and they get rich and they get more powerful, and we always have to pay the price. I don't know why people still believe in it. And most of the stuff that these people say doesn't ever happen. So why are we still believing that? And why don't we just create cool shit instead? Why don't we do cool shit instead? It's crazy. I really don't know. Anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. This discredited mainstream media continued to peddle lie after lie in an attempt to keep its political opponents from governing and being elected, but it then faced a powerful counterweight. Elon Musk ended the regime of censorship and enforcement bias in the digital public square of Twitter, declaring, "You are the media now," as major podcasts and YouTube shows secured audience most mainstream media outlets can only dream of. By the time of last year's presidential election in the U.S., the rise of new media had become undeniable, with many rightly calling it the podcast election. Here's the thing, just to address this whole thing, you have to be an expert to talk about it. I'm not a fan of that either. I don't agree with Douglas Murray. I thought that was a pretty stupid thing he did, because I couldn't say that, because I got my start in photography by just going somewhere with the camera I had, or getting I think I borrowed a camera maybe, anyways, and just taking photos and then going, well, I'm going to be a photographer from now on. And there were many times that people got elitist on me and didn't help. And it just made me get better. And then I passed all of them, so I can't do that, because I would be guilty of not being an expert and trying to insert myself into something where in the experts world, I certainly didn't belong. So I think that's dumb. I think the same thing, because people come on YouTube and like, you only have 1,000 subscribers and 243 views. Who are you to say anything? Well, it's like, you have no views, so by your logic, you can't say shit either. And that's dumb. So I just want to clear that up. If I take one stance on that, I just don't believe that. Now, I think people that have time and that have put the time into a subject and have gotten degrees in them, I think they hold some weight, and they definitely should be given the credit they're due. But at the end of the day, fuck it, man. People should be able to say what they want. And you should be able to do what you want. So I don't know. It just makes sense to me that that's just a little. Okay. By the time of last year's, we read that. Curious, open-minded, inquisitive podcasters, unrestrained by the need to comply with corporate media message, discipline, and social media censorship, were finally able to speak freely, seek the truth, and debate controversial ideas in good faith in front of grateful audiences of millions. So far, so wonderful. After all, what could go wrong with democratizing this information? The thing is a lot of people want to talk about freedom. They want to talk about this, that, and the other. And then when they get that and they see that not everything that comes with that is great, or there's things you didn't think that would be there, then they're like, oh, well, that was a bad idea. Freedom allows people to say what they want, and it gets crazy. I have a YouTube channel. Trust me. I'm constantly baffled by the comments. I'm just like, I say things, right? Let's talk about freedom. People comment on my page. I say things in my video explicitly. And then they come and say, well, you didn't say this. And it's like, or whatever. It's wild. I'm not going to crash out over that. Not today. Okay. Anyways. Well, as it turns out, quite a lot. Just as the assumptions of the elite class were proved wrong by the actions of their fellow citizens during the era of Trump, Brexit, and COVID-19, the assumptions some of us held about the future of the media are now crumbling for our very eyes. I have to say, having been a person that formerly took political stances very seriously, and may have thought very highly of my political stance and forced it on others unwillingly, just tried to be right, I would have to say that the fact that a guy that is responsible for a lot of what he's now upset about coming and saying that he was wrong about this, that's a big step. You have to see here. You have to think about how I see this. I don't give a shit about any of these people. I could care less what happens to them. I give no shits about any of it. I give very few shits about anything except for my circle, right? Because that's all I can do. So I don't care who's right or wrong here. I am here because I am interested in the Rogan sphere and exploring it. But I don't care about these people. So when I say something, I'm not looking at it with emotion. And I can acknowledge when someone is doing something, that's what these political people need to start learning how to do, is acknowledge when people have valid points, when people do something wrong, when people admit they're wrong, when people say sorry and be like, that's big. That's a big thing. We could do that. If our politicians started doing that, shit, most of our problems would be fixed. With like 20% accountability in politics, bro, we could change the world. That's a whole nother story. Now here it is. With politics becoming the primary form of entertainment in Western society. I just said that. That is great sentence. Great sentence. More of us now get our news and opinions from entertainers rather than serious commentators, and just as importantly, we often struggle to tell the difference between the two. Having transitioned from a career in comedy to my current role as writer, interviewer, and political commentator, I can hardly complain about the meshing of culture, politics, and entertainment. I am not complaining. I am merely pointing out that the incentive structures and thought patterns we typically associate with entertainment business are not the same as those we expect to see in journalism or academia. Bro, I feel you. I used to have this high regard. I chased journalism. I had a high regard for it. I still think photojournalists are about the only thing you're going to get in journalism that is as close to accurate as possible or as close to honest. And even then, that space is highly tainted as well. I've had my own run-ins with the news and them trying to change my photos or telling me to go back and make people look sad and stuff in the photos. And I was like, what? Like, this is what happened. Like, how can you doctor this? And look, he made another good admission here by saying the same thing as I did. How can I complain about this expert, thing when I myself am a part of that, right? The difference was perfectly illustrated in the recent debate between journalist and author Douglas Murray and comedian and podcaster Dave Smith on the Joe Rogan Experience, the world's biggest podcast. Officially, the full 3-hour discussion was mostly about the wars in Gaza and Ukraine, with Smith in the so-called anti-war camp and Murray as a supporter of both Israel's campaign to eliminate Hamas and Ukraine's struggle to retain its sovereignty and independence. These conflicts and both men's positions have been debated endlessly. That part of this discussion is less relevant here. The much more interesting fault lines were exposed on the fringes of the debate. The conversation began with the discussion of Rogan's decision to host Daryl Cooper, a man described by Tucker Carlson as America's most important historian. Cooper himself has a self-awareness not to own the label of historian, instead describing himself as a storyteller. His latest work in a series whose aim is to show World War II from the perspective of the Germans. To those who have studied World War II extensively, like Murray, Cooper's comments on Carlson's show and in his podcast with Joe Rogan are obvious and frankly, boringly familiar. Nazi apologia. I have studied World War II. One of the things I have accomplished in college, one of my degrees is in history. So I have very extensive knowledge of this, very extensive knowledge. Could you consider me an expert? Nah, I don't think I'm an expert at anything. That's a hard word to try and put on yourself. Where are we here? From being novel, the idea peddled by Cooper that Winston Churchill was a warmonger who turned the invasion of Poland into a global war because he was funded by Zionist financiers formed the core of the wartime propaganda fabricated by Joseph Goebbels. The argument Cooper advances, the millions of prisoners of war and civilians died on the Eastern Front because the Nazis failed to plan properly for the invasion is a simple lie. There's extensive documentary evidence which confirms the reason millions of POWs and civilians died on the Eastern Front is precisely because the Nazis succeeded in their plans. They did to an extent. Now, was the war in Russia what the Nazis thought it would be? No. And winter came. And we had Stalingrad. It was a war of attrition. It was simply a meat grinder. It's crazy. It's crazy. You know, I find it interesting. I'm more of a fan of World War I history because it's the first war where soldiers actually like kind of really spoke out about it in books. If you've read any of the novels from World War I, they are crazy. They are insanely crazy. And I've read most of them, and it's crazy how these leaders sent people. It's crazy how leaders send people to war, knowing what's going to happen, especially like World War I, where it was just one side looking at the other, standing across in no man's land, which was a meat grinder as well. You know, it's absolutely crazy. But I want to point out, Joe Rogan also has Oliver Stone on, and if you've watched Oliver Stone's documentary, he speaks about Winston Churchill and the war, and he presents the view that Winston Churchill, if you didn't know, Russia, England, and the United States were allies in World War II. Now, in the Oliver Stone movie, Winston Churchill basically makes a decision where he makes a speech where he says that the Russians are communists. I think that's where it first, or fascists or something like that. And then it basically put the United States in a position to where they have to make a decision. Do I want to be a superpower and join England and become, this great nation? Or do I want to keep the alliance with Russia? And obviously Oliver Stone said that America chose England, and that is kind of, I guess, alluded to where the whole communist Russia thing came from. That was Oliver Stone. To my understanding, that was Oliver Stone's presentation of it. And you can, so it kind of coincides with this a little bit, just the language and some of the things are different, but who knows, who knows? You'll have to go find that out for yourself. We're not here to discuss that. Just want to put it out there. Because Murray's educated on the issue, he assumes that everyone else, including Smith, is too exasperated. He tries to explain that from far from being revolutionary, these ideas have been pushed by discredited historians like David Irving for decades. Have you consumed any of his podcasts or anything like that? Rogan interjects. It turns out Murray hasn't, and this is later used against him after the episode airs. Unlike Murray, I've listened to Cooper's podcast, including the one about the history of Palestine that people often cite in his defense. He details the persecution of Jews preceding the events he covers, so he couldn't possibly be anti-Semitic, is their argument. From this, they could conclude that he couldn't possibly be a Nazi apologist. The reason they make this logical error is that in the entertainment world, words do not have meanings. They have feelings. Amen. 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 I agree with that. People are always coming on the internet with so many feelings. Like, do you remember the 90s internet? Feelings? What was that? It was pure fun. Just using the internet for fun, stupidity, hanging out with your peeps, gaming, and now the internet has become this torture device of even Instagram, which was supposed to be about happy pictures. Now, the last time I was on Instagram, I was just seeing people get shot, people get hit by cars, all these opinions on the wars. And I was like, yo, it's crazy. I am so unemotional. About most everything. I have two shits. I don't look at things with emotion. I look at things analytically and very logically. Everything I do, I weigh out all the calculations. I weigh out the best case scenarios. I'm pretty intentional about everything I do. And I just don't understand why people get in their feelings so much. It's not important. Why are you in your feelings so much? Like, what are we doing? It's crazy. It's crazy how emotional people. I think the most annoying people in the world are completely emotional. And I'm not talking about, yo, bro, it's okay to cry. No, I'm not talking about shit like that. I'm talking about people that come into your life that they're so emotional, they're cancer, and they suck everything out of you. You know those people. Some of them people are your family members. Some of them people are your best friends. And worst of all, some of those people you in a relationship with. And I vowed, I was emotional. I did stupid emotional things in my 20s. I still make mistakes, granted. But in my 30s, I vowed to never do that stuff again because it ruins everything. Thus, it ruined the internet. But great statement. Feelings. Thanks to the woke's left's misuse of the word Nazi for the last decade, in the podcastian, the term is not a descriptive label, but a vague, meaningless insult to cancel people. But it's the same. It's the same. See, I see it. It's the same. I think both sides are stupid. One side uses like Nazi and woke. The right uses woke. The left uses Nazi. And it's just like, just because people have an opinion on one thing doesn't mean they're anything. And do we really understand what these words mean? You know, are we using the right term to label somebody that doesn't hold the same beliefs as us? Thus, they are wrong, and thus they are said term. Right? It's really stupid. Listen, man. Listen, I say this all the time. Some of y'all need to hear it again. Life is short. Life is fucking short. Absolutely, bizarrely, unfairly short. So much so, looking back 10 years makes me nostalgic and in fear that, holy shit, this is going to be gone before I know it. So why the fuck are we wasting our time on this shit? I'm so tired of it. It's such fucking bullshit. But I got to get to the bottom of this. So ignore what I just said. I mean, the political stuff. It's such bullshit. We're so content with war, killing, destroying, being more powerful, torturing, all these things we do to people. What are we doing? And we all try to act like we're good. You said this on the internet, but you're bad. Well, what about all them bombs you dropped, motherfucker? What about them? My words just made people upset because I ain't got nothing better to do. And I probably said them because I ain't got nothing better to do. Or I just felt a certain way. But you are creating decades and decades of violence. Anyways, shut up. Where are we? Unlike his opponents, Murray clearly understands that the term Nazi apologist has a defined meaning, and the fact that most Nazi apologists are anti-Semitic does not mean that you have to be anti-Semitic to fit the description. The Grok definition of Nazi apologist is someone who defends, justifies, or minimizes the actions, ideology, or atrocities committed by the Nazi regime, often by excusing Nazi policies or promoting revisionist narratives that distort historical facts. Since Cooper does precisely this in several appearances on major podcasts, how his series on Palestine would change this reality is clearly as confusing to Murray, who hasn't listened to it, as it is to me, who has. Well. This is strange. You're seeing a guy that has been on Joe Rogan's podcast, has promoted the political view of the Rogan sphere, has constantly spoke about woke culture, cancel culture, whatever, right? He's constantly done that. Now, this man is making an attempt to see some middle ground, okay? And I know for you on the internet, all you people that just want to shit on people in the comments and just get yourself off. I get it. I get it. I get crazy in video games, and I got banned this morning because I talk too much shit. So I get your perspective. But at some point, well, I don't know. Maybe that's what the internet's for. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just saying I could be wrong. Maybe we just need to talk more shit on the internet. But I'm saying I don't think so. I don't think so. I think at some point, if you want to be a part of these conversations, you got to stop. And when people give you a bridge to a middle ground, you should at least attempt to walk over it, but make sure your homie brings the little boat to the shore in case you need to go back to your island. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean because you meet someone in the middle ground that you're giving up your values, that you're giving. In fact, you're becoming a bigger person and you're setting your values and your time aside to hear this guy's position. And then you can discuss or debate or whatever, but you have to do that. And I think this guy is trying as best as he can to say, hey, I was wrong, and here's where I'm wrong. And I think maybe I was wrong about the idea of letting all of this happen. Just for you in the comments that need clarity too, I'm not taking a position here. I'm just presenting it. Indeed, one of the main areas of misunderstanding in this discussion is the role of expertise. He does not claim to be an expert, is Smith's riposte to Murray's suggestion that Cooper doesn't know what he is talking about. He uses the same defense when Murray questions Smith's own willingness to opine on geopolitics. The central critique of Murray here is that he is arguing from authority, which is what mainstream media has done for years to gaslight the public about everything from transgenderism to COVID to war. Smith and his supporters argue that the concept of expertise has been so discredited that he, and anyone else for that matter, is entitled to express any views about issue they want. The audience, they say, can judge these views themselves. Murray's attempt to dismiss such views on the basis that they don't align with expert opinion is seen as an ineffective argument at best, an attempt at credentialism at worst. Yeah, I don't think he should do that. Definitely don't. There's a sliver of truth to this criticism. Engaging the argument someone is making directly is a much more powerful approach, but to suggest that arguments from authority are entirely invalid is silly. Yeah, it's a hard game you play, because if you've ever been in academia, it's the worst. They will not let you have an opinion until you've done your time, you've kissed the ring, and if you don't kiss the ring, they kiss your ass goodbye. And so it's an argument. It's like, at what point can you have an opinion? Or maybe you're not an expert, but you have an idea that the experts haven't thought of, or an opinion worthy of experts considering. I don't know. I just don't care, actually. I'm just going to say what I want. I get accused of this very thing every single day. Who cares? If you have an opinion, you live once. Nobody's gonna care about us in 50, 100 years. Fucking live it up, baby. Almost everything you believed is based on an argument from authority. Light bulbs, for example, are fairly unsophisticated and omnipresent part of our lives. Yet the number of people reading this article who are capable of explaining how they work without resorting to arguments from authority will be vanishingly small. I'm not just talking about the fact that most people couldn't explain how electricity works. I'm talking about the fact that almost everyone who can will be able to do so only by quoting the work of other people rather than experts and research they themselves have conducted. While Rogan seems to side with Smith in this exchange, it is highly unlikely he would adopt this same approach to his own areas of expertise. When it comes to mixed martial arts, he interviews guests are the best of the best, the dazzling array of UFC champions, top MMA coaches, respected trainers, and other experts do not appear to include comedian Dave Smith. Man, that's a hell of a point. He does. I never thought about it that way. Joe Rogan be having the cream of the crop. I mean, if you look at jiu-jitsu, he has on Gordon Ryan all the time. And if you know about jiu-jitsu, whether or not you like Gordon Ryan, he is considered number one, even though I think Nicky Rod got robbed. But Nicky Rod's gonna be the guy that shut down Gordon Robin, without a doubt, because he already did shut down Gordon Robin. But that's another debate. Anyways, there's a particular clip of the JRE YouTube channel in which Smith breaks down why Vladimir, I'm gonna call him Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. I was unable to find Vladimir. It's so much cooler. Vladimir, sorry. I know you guys are sensitive about spelling, but Vladimir Putin, despite Smith possessing a similar level of expertise on both subjects. Smith and Rogan are irked when Murray expresses his befuddlement that Smith has become a prominent voice in the debate about Israel and Palestine without ever visiting the Middle East. The shock at the idea that someone ought to see things with their own eyes before commenting them is palpable. Indeed, in the aftermath of the debate, Smith promoted a popular video in which Murray's statements to this effect are contrasted with the previous ridicule of the concept of lived experience. Yeah, it's the same thing. Like, let's take a recent news thing. When those people went down in that submarine and it exploded, everybody had opinions on it. And I'm not just talking about the public. I'm talking people in the news, people that weren't experts. And in fact, 99.9% of the people talking about that submarine exploding down at the Titanic or whatever. I don't even remember. I just knew the submarine went down. I didn't care about that either. They ain't never been down by the Titanic or never been in one of them submarines. It's just a stupid argument. Okay. Indeed, in the aftermath of the debate, Smith promoted a popular video in which Murray's statements of this effect are contrasted with his previous ridicule of the concept of lived experience. This is very low quality thinking. If you do not see things with your own eyes, your opinions are by definition not your own. They are Guys, I have so much spit in my mouth. Sometimes I do not know how to do any of these words. Of opinions. There we go. And facts you have gathered from other sources whose veracity you cannot properly evaluate. That doesn't necessarily make them wrong. Indeed, most of our opinions about most things are not our own. You know why? Because we get them from people we consider to be authoritative on the subject in question. You might call them experts. The great trick being deployed here is to allege that experts can't be trusted while relying on different set of experts. On Ukraine, the non-expert Smith is using the ideas of people he considers experts like John Mearsheimer and Jeffrey Sachs. On World War II, the non-expert Cooper deploys the argument of people he considers experts like Irving, and so on and so forth. All opinions are valid and should be given a hearing. Scream the people whose entire media diet is made up of people who push only their preferred perspective. Yeah, I guess that's it, man. I say what I think is my perspective all the time. That's what we do. I just think Dave Smith is trying to be something, and you can decide. I don't really care who's right or wrong on the Douglas Murray thing. For me, it was just that Rogan had to explain himself for once where nobody was willing to. But I think the thing for Dave Smith is Dave Smith had to come to the realization, you want to talk about politics, now you have to own the shit that comes with it, right? And that's just how it is. And I think Dave Smith is really this is going to change who he is. Is he a comedian or what? I just don't think you can be both full time. I just don't think you can, because if you enter into the world of politics, boy, oh boy, is that a different scene. Yeah. On World War II, we read that. This is where Smith obtains the arguments he makes about the countries he's never visited from other people, and the arguments are then judged not on whether they are true, something Smith does not have the expertise to assess, but on whether they sound true. This is why he routinely makes basic cognitive errors of the kind I described the last time he and I sparred over my viral Israel video. As for experience, The woke concept of lived experience was not ridiculed because experience doesn't matter. You'd have to be deeply dishonest to deny the experience are informative. If Michael Jordan claimed that this is the correct way to dunk a basketball based on his experience and conversations with Kobe Bryant, do you imagine Smith and his defenders would screech about MJ just using arguments from authority and lived experience? The reason many of us push back against lived experience, other than it is a grading tautology, is that it is used as a way to say you can't have this opinion on a certain societal issue because of your race, sex, and/or sexuality. This has expanded the concept of experience from personal experience that all of us as individuals have to kind of generalized knowledge that certain groups allegedly possess by virtue of their skin color or other immutable characteristics. If Murray had claimed that Smith is unqualified to comment because he is not a Middle Easterner, for example, his critics would have a point. Instead, he merely pointed out that Smith might become more informed by visiting the region he opines about with such confidence and regularity. Which brings us finally to the biggest sticking point of all. This is the strongest evidence of thought policing I have ever seen, says a popular comment under a video of the debate. On numerous occasions from thought throughout the discussion, Murray commits the greatest sin available in podcastian. The fuck is that? Suggesting that certain people shouldn't comment on certain things and that others should not elevate their voices, such as the inability to think clearly among this, that you would almost certainly receive less pushback for denying the slavery harmed Black Americans or claiming the Holocaust didn't really happen. They simply no longer understand the difference between censorship. This must be banned, and morality. This is a bad thing to do. I think that, man. I think that too, and why at some point, like, I had to step back from this chaos where you're always trying to be right or wrong based on what you think is right or wrong. You don't see clearly. You become stuck at your side. You take on values and stuff just because it's your side, because it's your tribal, and that tribe protects you or protects your identity. And I just wish people had the ability to just kind of like meet in the middle and look objectively at all of it. Not saying I am great at looking things objectively, but maybe we should be like, whoa, let's just step back a minute. At least have that instinct to step back and be like, okay, this is what I believe. Let me hear this thing out before I really just, yell, this is what you should believe. Ah! Okay. But of course, the world of entertainment is not driven by truth seeking. Yeah, I think so too. I think people should be able to be like, why would you listen to a celebrity about your opinion on something? They're like, we should be doing, shut the fuck up. You're a celebrity. Shut up. Why don't you go back to your pool? How about that? Why don't you go back to your mansion? How about that? Shut up. Just because you're famous doesn't mean you're right, or doesn't mean, oh, wait. Prime example, right? I just did what this whole article accused me of. Let's just stop making these videos, man. I just keep putting myself out there. It's not good. But of course, the world, okay. What is this podcastian? It's like a land. Welcome to the land of podcastian, Zaya. You shall find your castle up upon the hill. Okay. Anyways, pod is a place where people scold the mainstream. Oh, there it is. He defines it. Spoke too soon. Okay. Podcastian is a place where people scold the mainstream media for failing to live up to their standards on honesty and accuracy while having none of their own. That's so true, man. Podcasters like, oh, yeah. I guess, hey, man, I've always said I was stupid, right? Don't expect anything out of me. Just please, if you're coming for me for some secret truths, stop. We're all stupid creatures. Why are we taking each other seriously? I always said, don't take each other so seriously. Don't take these guys seriously. You know what? If you don't, like, none of this stuff. All right, I'm not going there. All right. I'm not going there. Okay. Cooper is a case in point. Even among his defenders, a few claim what he is saying is actually true. That's not why they like Cooper. They like Cooper because he ticks every box in the new media. That is so true. People aren't thinking out individual ideas anymore. people are choosing a side and then following suit, right? It's not like that anymore. But you can't blame people too. I sit here and I say, I wish people, but like, look, people have bills, people have things. They're looking out for what's best for them. And that's just how it is, my friends. That is how it is. Good joint. Transgression. Since new media positions itself as a challenge to the mainstream, it rewards above all ideas that are transgressive. In an environment where the truth is often met with outrage, saying something controversial is easily confused with saying something true. If libs are upset, it must be true. Is a poor heuristic for the understanding of the world, but it is what often passes for thinking in podcastian. Charisma. Cooper is charismatic. All media, but new media especially, over-indexes charisma, and that is because charisma and authenticity are connected. People who say what they think truly think they are typically more charismatic than those who filter and obfuscate. Sorry. Man, dude, don't drink coffee. I just get so much spit in my mouth. Obfuscate. But just because someone says what they truly think does not mean what they think is true. Yeah, of course. Of course, we're all wrong. You're right. Conspiracy. Cooper's ideas are conspiratorial. A key element of the new media worldview is that you are constantly being lied to by mainstream institutions. It is extremely helpful to proponents of this perspective that you are, in fact, frequently lied to by mainstream institutions. In this context, ideas that appear to expose a hidden truth always have more appeal. Entertainment value. Cooper's podcasts are entertaining. In a world where culture, politics, history, and pretty much everything else is a form of entertainment, entertaining ideas that are wrong appeal more than boring ideas that are true. Political alignment. As I have explained previously, Cooper's ideas about the past are popular because they serve a specific political purpose right here in the present. The incomprehension Smith and his supporters exhibit at the notion that bad ideas ought not be spread widely and that we do not owe those who insist on uttering them access to our audiences, I imagine exactly the sort of incomprehension that a fast food or big pharma executive would exhibit at the suggestion that selling unhealthy food or addictive drugs is a bad thing to do. It's a free country, after all. If those industries can poison your body, why can't Cooper poison your mind? There it is. This article has caused a lot of craziness on the internet and a lot of people talking. And I think so. And my immediate questions is, how's Joe Rogan going to take this? Is this guy ever going to see another JRE episode? This guy, my point is whether or not you agree or disagree with this guy, that's politically, who cares? That's your own business. My point is this guy is also admitting that he's wrong about what he thought. And he's also speaking up against Joe Rogan, which risky business, really risky. So I wanted to come from this article I found, and I think this was written yesterday, and it's called What Konstantin Kisin Gets Wrong About New Media. So I want to see another perspective from this. A week on from Douglas Murray's incendiary performance on the Joe Rogan Experience, the online right is still in flames. The latest explosion is a new post by Konstantin Kisin. As one of the Trigonometry podcasts, Kisin is one of the most prominent figures on the online right. You see how they describe him? It's crazy. And I guess he described himself in the end of the article that he transitioned. Even if he does describe himself as a purveyor of political non-binary opinions, therefore his critique of what he calls podcastian, i.e. his own industry, deserves our attention. He used to be such a fan. For years, I have celebrated the rise of new media and its impact on our ability to seek truth, challenge false narratives peddled by legacy institutions, and transform the way we conduct our political debate. In an era when mainstream media, academia, and politics all fell into the same woke morass, a plucky band of curious, open-minded, inquisitive podcasters offered a lifeline. However, it's not come to Kisin's attention that the podcastian may not be the land of heroes he imagined to be. All too often, its clickbait economy provides a refuge for the scoundrel. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's keep reading here. I've got some opinions. That's always been the case, of course. From its earliest days, the online right has had its alt-right shadow realm, but Kissen is more concerned by who gets interviewed by the biggest names in podcasting, like the likes of Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson, than the comments on obscure message boards. The order of priority is correct. The conservative cause would be better served if the most popular podcasters always exercise the highest standards of journalistic quality control. And yet, Kissen's key change that podcasters are subject to the same incentive structures and thought patterns we would typically associate with the entertainment business is why the failings matter less than those of the mainstream media. Okay, the fact is traditional news sources still enjoy higher levels of public confidence than newer, more opinionated platforms. But when a trusted broadcaster or newspaper makes a bad editorial decision, for instance, describing trans-identifying male sex offenders as women or destructive riots as mostly peaceful, or the possibility that COVID escaped from a lab as a conspiracy theory, the harm it does to society is because of the investment in the quality journal, not despite it. To buy the degree of credibility, sometimes with public money, and the abuse for its ideological reasons does more damage than the bias of taking head on the internet. Okay. The vital difference is made bigger by the fact that the podcastian tolerates a great deal more dissent than the mainstream media. When Kissen speaks out or James Lindsay condemns the woke right, the errors of the online right are at least aired and might even be corrected. Don't forget, Murray made his comments about Rogan's podcast on the Joe Rogan Experience. It would also be no surprise if he were invited back. It would be refreshing to see the senior BBC editors subjected to the same unfiltered criticism. Kissen and company are right to kick off against the BS merchants on their own side, but they shouldn't lose all faith in podcastian. The very fact that it can hold itself accountable shows just how much we need it. So there's another perspective that they, to some extent, the podcast world is holding itself accountable by these conversations. I mean, it's a messy deal. I mean, God, why Joe Rogan decided to tread into these waters, I don't know. Why? We hear about this stuff all the time. All right. And then I found this article and I wanted to finish with it because we just want a few more perspectives, because honestly, I think there's something really going on, and I think it's a lot darker than we think. I think Joe Rogan has stepped in some waters that are, to my knowledge, crazy. He has all these crazy ex-special forces security guard. He's always having a CIA guy on. He's getting everyone's information when they come into the mothership, their license or passport, their photo. And he's just become a giant political podcaster now. And there's something really wrong here. And I'm trying to get to it at some point. Joe Rogan's podcast yesterday, featuring Douglas Murray and Dave Smith talking about the Middle East conflict, among other topics, failed to move the needle in either direction, at least not on any of the subjects that the debate was purportedly about. The pro-Israel camp was unmoved by Smith's emotional petitions on behalf of Palestinian civilians. Those sympathetic to the Palestine cause were unconvinced by Murray's arguments about experience-based knowledge, with many criticizing what they took to be Murray's message that only experts should speak their minds. That seems to be the thing that's got people most wound up, is that expert thing. Murray stumbled on a key issue regarding reporting when he upbraided Smith for not visiting Israel or Gaza. I genuinely agree that it's a good idea to visit a place you write about, and the fact is that there are thousands of reporters who have spent lots of time in Gaza and Israel and have spoken to lots of people there and who see it just like Smith. Indeed, very few journalists under the age of 50 who have covered the conflict for Western media, from the Associated Press to El País, The Guardian to the Washington Post, do not believe the same things about Israelis and Palestinians that Smith does. What's interesting here is that Smith, hold on, take a joint, and other podcasters who boast of ostensibly provocative takes. Oh, sorry. Whoops. Gotta get a drink. Hold on. Joint hit too good. Don't dare speak for fear of upsetting powerful forces. But the self-styled dissident podcasters' edgy takes are mere repackaged establishment wisdom that they generate in consort with one another. There's just no way to get rid of Hamas without it being replaced by more Hamas or Hamas-like groups, Smith tells Murray, on the inevitability of a resistance against military force. It's General McChrystal's insurgent math, citing the premise of Stanley McChrystal's counterinsurgency doctrine as strange. Smith is famously and rightly critical of the United States' failed wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, but the only people who think the retired four-star was right to spend American lives and money cheaply by prioritizing the hearts and minds of people who wanted the hearts and minds to kill Americans are West Point faculty, think tank experts scattered across Washington, D.C., and family and guests gathered around the Thanksgiving table at Bush Ranch. Even the role Smith and Rogan play in an establishment category, a comic who is not just a jester, but a gimlet-eyed and idiosyncratic observer of current events celebrated for rewarding sardonically to his young and disaffected audience. It's Jon Stewart, but for right-wing audiences. Ooh, I just don't think Dave Smith has the charisma that Jon Stewart has. It's true, isn't it? So what exactly is happening here? Call it the wages of Russiagate. Starting no later than December 2016, the American media began collaborating with U.S. spy services in an unprecedented effort to topple the President of the United States. The media has long tilted the left and thus earned the disdain of the right, but using leaks of classified information to interfere with an administration of government made the media, in the eyes of the right, an enemy institution. The media's complicity in the subsequent anti-Trump operations, from the special counsel investigation to the 2 attempts on Trump's life, plunged half the country further and further into doubt, despair, and even paranoia. Yeah, the country really is divided, man. But that's the tool. The role of politics is to divide us so they can do whatever they want. That's why I just try not to let it control my thoughts and my mind, man. It is what it is. Once you see it for what it is, you can't see it anything else. And politics is not your friend. After all, with the January 6th arrests and prosecutions, it became clear that Joe Biden White House and its media auxiliaries were aiming not just at Trump, but his supporters as well. Grandmothers, veterans, clergy were being rounded up for exercising the First Amendment rights. Ooh, you kind of see how both sides do the same thing, right? The press cast them as insurrectionists and reportedly favorably about children who turned their insurrectionist parents over to the police. Under those circumstances, who could we trust? Yeah, both sides do the same thing. They both go after certain things. They both go after certain people. It's just crazy when you read it. I'm just like, I'm seeing the correlations between both administrations. I'm just going, that's the entertainment that the new right-wing media, these podcasts, has inherited. One option would have been to approach audiences knowing that since these Americans have gone through hell, many of them all but broken, they need their faith restored. So true. So true. Americans just need a hand. We don't need a new political philosophy. We just need to get to work to helping people and fixing this fucking country, man. To move forward, they need to know true things about the world, their communities, and themselves, or we will be lost as a nation. In short, that is the media's job to help them believe again. I think so. I think we're in a rough spot, man. People are so divided, and it's not good. It's not good. We need to do something that can. Dude, we need a fucking concert. Oh, I'm gonna get shit for that. That's not the choice the podcasters made. Rather, consciously or not, they saw their audience as easy marks, made even more vulnerable with additional doses of fear and panic and falsehood. You have no control over your own country or even your lives, they tell them, sometimes daily. Trump has no control over the government, they say over and over. Neocons are driving us to war with Iran and thousands will die, they tweeted again and again. The reason Smith and others are disguising establishment talking points as new right wisdom is to herd their audiences into the pen the left built for them. Those are some heavy words, friends. And that's why I think, in that sentence alone, I know that both sides work together when they're not in front of the cameras. And I'm just wondering, is Rogan like a part of all of this? Is he consciously like made an agreement with these people that do these things? I just think there's something really off about Rogan, really dark. And seeing that since at a young age, he was in bed with Disney and Viacom and with those deals, I can't believe that Rogan is this independent man that he claims to be, because he never has been. His paycheck has always come from the people that he's tried to criticize. So let me know your thoughts. Help me on this. This was a long one, over an hour. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your support. Please, just make points about the subject matter. I know I am all the things, right? But I don't care about that. It doesn't bother me. I really want to figure this shit out. So if you make a comment, please make it towards pushing this conversation forward, or an opinion. Don't just make an attack at me. That doesn't help anybody. And if you're trying to help your insecurities or yourself feel better or whatever, or trying to be right, it's not going to work. Okay? Thank you. Have a good day. I appreciate your time. I look forward to your comments. Bye.